Yo, are you guys ready for this one?
Here we go.
Part 3, chapters 5 and 6. Let's get it, shall we? Oh, that's me. And there's Mike.
Hey, ho there, neighbor.
How you doing?
Fantastic. What's new?
Um, hmm.
Any new PRs at the gym?
Here's a new PR. I walked 3 miles faster today than before.
Hey, that's
So
progress.
like the gym is 3 miles away. So I walk there and I walk back, right? So instead of taking me an hour to get home, it took me 45 minutes. So I shaved it down by 15 minutes.
Well done.
Yeah. So I take that as a W. You know what I mean? Like that's a W, right?
Progress is always a W.
So today, everybody, we are reading It's Good to Be a Man. Get it from Mike Foster. I think right now on Kindle, if I'm correct, you could get it for free on Kindle. He's doing he's doing a promo on Kindle for the book, and I believe you can get it for free. I thought that's what I saw on Twitter recently. I could be wrong. Let me double check that real quick. Wait a minute. I close out Twitter. Well, I'll find out later on. But chapter 5 and so let's just kind of recap.
Yeah.
3 and 4 real quick. Chapter 3 talks about sex was being very good. God created sex for a good thing, right?
The
And
engine
sexual
of dominion.
the engine of dominion. Sex is the engine of dominion, right? Chapter 4 talked about the war on sex. It talks about how the devil wants to ruin sex, how the devil hates sex. And contrary to what popular demand is, you would think that the devil loves sex because of the way that he perverts it. No, the devil just hates the way that God intended for it to be utilized.
Yeah, it does him no good if more Christians are being created through sex.
Exactly. So we went through that. Chapter 5, the title is Spiritual War and Spiritual Worship. So I'll read the summary. And it goes like this. Satan's goal is tearing down God's hierarchy. I'm going to keep on saying hierarchy and patriarchy because you know why? It just pisses off a lot of people that I've been talking to. For some reason, the word hierarchy and patriarchy means authoritative. We're not going to get into that yet. But Satan's goal is tearing down God's hierarchy and frustrating the fruitfulness of his image bearers. Thus, the devil's project is androgyny. This is why androgyny has become a religion of a sort. Those who question the LGBT plus agenda are treated like heretics. Humans are built to worship, and modern pagans can no more stop worshiping androgyny than they can stop being male and female. The choice is stark. Serve God to bring heaven to earth or serve Satan to bring hell. The highlights. You might think you are too smart for that to work on you. Don't be so sure. It has worked on millions of smart men so far. Are you smarter or wiser than Solomon? Just because you know how to avoid harlots and hussies doesn't mean you know how to avoid Satan's daughters. The obvious traps are just there to trample the simple. What makes a good husband, according to Sandberg, it is a man who does not get in the way of his wife's ambitions. This is why the commanding alpha males of her youth won't do. They'll buck against her demands and manipulations. Sandberg, like all loud women eventually settle for a compliment beta who knows who really wears the pants. So
what I really liked about this spiritual worship chapter, spiritual war, was how he points out what worship is. It's not just like this, you're on your knees worshiping God. It's really through service.
yeah.
And so he kind of points out how we're all worshiping something because we're all basically in service of something. Like here, he said, it does not confine worship to doctrine and ritual. Rather, it defines worship primarily in terms of service. He gives a bunch of verses in like the Old Testament too, that talks about worship and service side by side. It is through our service that we are supposed to glorify and enjoy God forever. So just showing, how the culture that claims to be not religious is very religious, because they're in service of something.
Yeah. We're all in service to something, right? Or we are either serving God, we're serving our flesh, or we're serving the devil, right? So it's safe to say that we're all always going to be in service, and it's our job to check ourselves and determine whose service are we in, right?
Yeah, you're either bringing heaven to earth or hell to earth. Whose team are you on?
Yeah,
the androgyny team's bringing hell to earth.
And I will say this, like, what I gathered from it is like we are, as if you're in an egalitarian framework, that is like androgyny.
Yeah, it is. It's like, because it's feminism.
It is.
And it's just pulling the sexes, the males are becoming more feminine and the females becoming more masculine. And it's androgyny.
It's basically like Christian trans.
Yeah.
I'm just here to make Mike out of the black pill. Need your help, Glenn. Hey, Bill Clinton touched me. I heard you had a new name. And what was it?
Oh, man. I told him about the name changing that goes on in our Discord.
Oh yeah, the robot salesman.
Yeah, he's the robot salesman.
That cracked me up. Like I think it's like egalitarian preaches androgyny. If a woman and man, there's no separation, that they have the same authority, that if they both have to be mutually submissive to one another. There's no distinction between man and woman. Anything a man could do, a woman could do. Or anything a woman do, a man could do. That there's no spiritual hierarchy or patriarchy. Then what do you have? Androgyny.
Now it loses that polarity in the relationships.
It does. It really does.
The one thing he pulls a quote in this on that note, because he talks about, remember Satan's chief desire is his own dominion and his critical
what
strategy.
Page?
This is 56. Okay. And tearing his critical strategy in achieving this goal is tearing down God's hierarchy and frustrating the fruitfulness of his image bearers.
Yep.
Thus, androgyny is the key. And so he goes into this. It's a quote from an article, I believe, by Randy Gunther.
Yeah, Randy Gunther.
And I think it's the title of the quote, or it's an article from, I think, HuffPost, saying why great husbands are being abandoned. When you read this, you realize the androgyny idea is not working. And this is I believe she's a feminist, like, he actually says what she's. I think she's a counselor, marriage counselor, psychologist chick.
She is.
But it said, so here's a quote. It became more and more apparent that quality people of both genders would be happier and more fulfilled if they could combine power and nurturing. Men would develop their feminine side and women their masculine. No longer would it be the bad boys were sexy and the good women were virtuous. Now quality men needed to add chivalry to their power and women to claim their ability for independent thinking and leadership. They could imagine a relationship where both were equally blended and free to be the best they could be. She and he became the new idealized we. So that kind of frames this utopian androgyny idea.
Yep.
And then she goes into what does he comment on? It produced a great many men who were the androgynous guys that their women had asked them to become. But Randy explains this project and hasn't ended as anticipated. And so she says here, you would think that the women in these new relationships would be ecstatic. Well, guess again, 50% of marriages are still ending in divorce, and women continue to be the gender that initiates those endings. In the past, their reasons for leaving most often had to do with infidelity, neglect, or abuse. Now they're dumping men who are faithful, attentive, and respectful, the very men they said they have always wanted. Why would women who have accomplished the female dream suddenly not be satisfied with it? Why are they leaving these ideal guys, and for what reasons? I'm currently dealing with several of these great husbands. They are across the board, respectful, quality, caring, devoted, cherishing, authentic, and supportive guys whose wives have left them for a different kind of man. You may think that these women are ruthless and inconsiderate. Those I know are far from that. More often, they still love their husbands and as much as they ever did, but in a different way. They tell me how wonderful their men are and how much they respect them. They just don't want to be married to them anymore.
And then he continues, says, the women I have treated who have left their husbands for more masculine men believe that their new relationship will be able to be both excite and nurture them. Sadly, that has not always happened. The veritable saint with balls is as elusive as ever. You know, and she's a psychologist and marriage counselor, just to clarify.
And she kind of, it sounds like she doubles down on it still, even though she says the results aren't what they're hoping to be.
But so we see this, like this teaching of androgyny, which literally comes from, it can't come from anymore from either feminism or egalitarianism, which you could, if you break it down further, they're one in the same vein. Feminism wants to say that we're all equal. Egalitarians say we're all equal, right? Feminism says that, you know, anything that you could do, she could do. Egalitarians say the same thing. Women could preach, you know. Women could be authoritative. Women could be head of the household. None of that's biblical.
And it's true in the sense that they can, but it's very evident it's not optimal, and that's, I think,
no, it's not that they can't, because if they can, they would do it correctly, and they would do it like a man, and it would be ran like as if it was a man. So they can't do it because it fails. So just because they could function, like, look, I could put diesel in my motorcycle, right, and it'll probably run for a little bit, but eventually it'll break down the engine because that's not the proper fuel for my motorcycle. 91 premium is, right? So because of that, yeah, it may function still, but it's not going to function on the best way, and eventually it will break down sooner. So just because they can't, they can't do it correctly as a man can do it correctly, just like men cannot do the things that women can do correctly. Can't breastfeed. Sorry. It's not happening. You're not going to get me lactating, right? Not going to get a baby come out. Just not happening. But
yeah, they're mixing up our strengths. They want dads to be stay-at-home dads now.
Yep.
And view that like empowering in some sort of way.
And so this androgyny thing is really, it's not just in the secular world. We're seeing it in the modern day evangelical churches across the board. And where does androgyny come from? It's a form of paganism.
Mm-hmm.
It's a form of paganism. And as
and
Christians,
you see cycles through it throughout history. It's nothing new.
Yeah, it's nothing new. And what we're seeing now in our culture, we have a culture that supports androgyny. Before, our culture was kind of, arm's distance of it. But now you got transgender everywhere. Men can have babies. Like, no.
You think it's just a symptom of like kind of like that luxury belief idea? Like things are so good. We haven't had, it's been the most probably peaceful time in history ever. Like since World War II, I think they say it's the peaceful time in human history. And so
Really though, we got a war going on in
the scale of like war and deaths and like all the conflicts have been really small and for the most part comparative to like world wars. You haven't had to draft the entire, besides Vietnam, which that was BS. But anyway, in terms of scale of like existential crisis of the world, like this stuff hasn't been near as bad unless we're saying Western culture. Like obviously other cultures, and frankly, those other cultures aren't dealing with this crap. But when you have times of wealth, abundance, peace, you find new problems to create.
Yeah, I think it, in a way that is true. That this is first world problems. All right.
Yeah.
These are first world problems. Let me get into the questions here for this chapter. Or is there anything else you wanted to highlight?
I'll just read the second part of that chapter is about that. It's about service and worship, and I think just remind like this. I had this underlined. Man will always try to exercise dominion by serving and worshiping a spiritual father. He cannot help it. It is his nature. The only question is, whose dominion will it be? Who will he be serving, or who will he serve and worship? The choice is stark: serving God to bring heaven to earth, or Satan to bring hell.
Yeah. Oh, that was at the end. Yeah, that was a good one. And we got to ask ourselves, like, daily, like, okay, who are we serving?
And don't let people get away with saying they're, atheist or spiritual but not religious. They're all religious.
Yeah. Yeah, you're all religious. Like, even if you believe in science, that's a religion. Because scientific hypotheses that are not proven, like the Big Bang, we have never replicated the Big Bang. It's a theory. So if you're going to believe in a theory, then you're having faith in something. That means you have a belief system in something. The question for this chapter, how is the war on gender a spiritual war? I think, when I would say it's a spiritual war because Satan doesn't want us to exercise our authority that God has given both men and women. He wants to blend it and blur it and teach a false doctrine. If churches are teaching anything that a man could do, a woman could do, that there's no hierarchy, there's no authority, there's no structure. God didn't create a structure. It's just whatever. Then we're already having half the battle won for him.
Yeah, if he can upset the family structure through this, like it's not just a hierarchy thing. Like obviously there's without the hierarchy structure that God intended, there's going to be problems just down the line. You can just see it in business. Like you can't have a business structured with a horizontal like system. You need hierarchy. You need managers. You need people in charge. Like the business will not exist. So it's evident in like all facets of life, but you also lose the like I think male and female attraction to each other. You lose
Yeah.
that polarity, and like I've said multiple times, I think we're literally becoming unattractive to each other.
Yeah, and really what it is it's we're seeing the worst in each other when we become androgynous. Right? We're seeing effeminate men masquerading as men, and women get upset with that because they're like, this is so unattractive, these effeminate men, because I want a man to be a man, right? But he's acting like a girl. And then guys are like, oh my God, she's such a boss babe. She's such a, she's so masculine. She's unattractive. And it goes back and forth. And it's because we're not falling in line with the roles that God has given us to fall into. And it just like androgyny leads down this road to where we are at war with one another. We wouldn't be men and women would not be at war. There wouldn't be a war in the sexes if everybody played their position. If men were good leaders, if men were good patriarchs, we wouldn't have an issue with evil patriarchy because men would be good patriarchs, right? But because of evil patriarchy and men abusing the patriarchal leadership that God has put them in as a man, we have women rebelling against that. We also have women rebelling against that because ever since the fall in Genesis 3:16, your desire to control your husband, he will rule over you. So even if we had good patriarchs, we would still have women wanting to control them because that was part of the curse from the fall.
Dave and I were talking today. Do you think like the quality of men? So to back up, it's usually stayed like, 80% of women are chasing 20% of men. And then they say now that's kind of like even shifted more, like 80% of women are chasing like 5% of men. Are men like, is the quality of men just deteriorating over and over? Like, is it just getting to be worse and worse?
Well, they say,
or is it that the expectations have gone up?
I think it's a combination of a few things. Women's expectations gone up, right? Men's expectations are gone up. Because before it was, oh, she just touched my pee-pee, she's wifey, Now men are waking up and they're like, I want more than you just touching my pee-pee. I want you to be submissive. I want you to, to be pleasant to be around. Like, there's a lot more things that men are starting to wake up and starting to say, like, these women are not capable of meeting, right? And so that disqualifies women. But before a guy could even have that criteria, they have to be attractive enough for a woman.
Yeah, I'd say like the amount of men actually disqualifying women, that's small.
It's small. It's only you, Mike. It's just you. It's only you. Like, you're the only one. No. You know what I mean? Like, you're the only one that's telling these women, nope, you're disqualified. Nope, you're disqualified, right? But I think that the bar keeps on being set at one, maybe an unrealistic expectation. I mean,
men have a lot of stupid expectations too. They want like the chick to be their best friend and like,
it goes both ways.
Masculine interests and stuff.
It goes both ways here, right? Men have unrealistic expectations. Women have unrealistic expectations, right? And so it's like guys that, don't bring in enough money and they want their wife to work a full-time job. You want her to work full-time, cook for you, clean for you, take care of the kids, and then still have time to bang you out? That's kind of ridiculous there, buddy. I mean, I think you need to recheck your situation here. You're not to be a good leader. In order, you would want to facilitate an environment, if that's what you wanted, for her to thrive in completing that. So if that would mean, hey, maybe you worked a full-time job and a part-time job, and that way she could doesn't have to work outside the home, and that way she could take care of all those other things that you want her to take care of at home and still be ready to bang you out when you get off work, right? That's how you help her. That's how you, if you want to use the word servant leader, that's how you be a servant leader. Her, you provide her the means for her to be successful in your relationship, right? But you can't expect her to work a full-time job, take care of the kids, cook, clean, do your laundry, bang you out. It just,
yeah. Well, I was thinking, I could see where it's probably quite the challenge for chicks today, because let's just take it, it's hard to, we're like, how do we measure how incompetent men are across the board? And it's like, how's the bell curve look? I don't know. But if you got to like put your trust in some guy, you're going to be some traditional woman, you're giving up your career that you could have in today's economy because it's designed for women.
Yep.
And you're going to let this guy lead you. Like what percentage of men fit that category for a woman to just let go of things and let that happen? And, they don't have and then that guy, he's got options. Like if he is that guy, so I can see where, it's tough for them to, get into that.
And here's the problem for guys. We have failed our sons by not equipping them to be that man.
Yeah.
Like fathers have failed their sons by not equipping them to be that man and teaching their sons how to do that, and so guys are literally floundering around trying to figure this out, right? They're trying to be this guy that they want to be for their wife, for the family, but they're just failing at it because no one took the time to teach them how to do it, right? And so it's like it's a hurdle, right? But then the guys that do got it all together and they are in that position, right? You're right. You brought up the options, and they have multiple options. So the girl that he chooses to commit to really has to be far above anybody else.
Yeah. Or she's dealing with a guy that fits that criteria, but she, the loyalty thing probably won't be likely.
There's that too, right? There's that too. And then you have to then get a guy with a good patriarch model would not fall that way though, right?
Right.
So let's just like I think like the girls that want the top tier guys, right? It's like less than 1%, right?
Men.
Yeah, men. But then adding evil patriarchy and good patriarchy in there, I think it's like less than 0.15% or 0.15%, right?
Yeah.
Because there's such a small group of guys that are able to do that. And so I think the struggle for men is that they want to be treated like the top dog, but they're not there yet, right?
They're not.
And it's like, well, but does that mean a wife shouldn't still be submissive to her husband? Does that mean a wife still shouldn't respect her husband? No, but that does mean you got to give her grace, because it's going to be a lot harder for her to do that, right? And but that doesn't give her a pass to be disrespectful, to be unsubmissive. It just means that when those times come, you got to work with the grace with her on that, because Christ gave us grace, right? So you have to be gracious to her. Understand that she's the weaker vessel, so be gracious to her. Understand that maybe once things are better in your situation and you're able to lead and provide accordingly, she will be able to fall into that role effortlessly.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Do we have any more questions on that chapter?
Yeah. How has this war destroyed people's lives? I'll say this. I think androgyny, especially with the way that it's taught in the church sphere, right? By destroying the patriarchy that God has created, in the hierarchy that God has installed in the family, you get husbands having all responsibility with no authority. And that breakdown there, the wife leaves or whatever the reason is, she's gone. And we blame the husband for the failure of the family, when he was never given the authority to exercise in order to keep that family intact. So when we have this androgyny and this egalitarian view, we just say men are to blame for everything. If the relationship fails, it's the man's fault. And in order to have that sense of responsibility, you have to be in a position of power. You know, you have to have authority. Mm-hmm. And so when we have androgyny, it easily, androgyny turns into femme-led, right? Oh, happy wife, happy life is a quick way to you go from androgyny to happy wife, happy life.
I think they're almost, they swap in and out.
Yeah.
And I would probably just say too, like, I think it's just an inevitable more broken families, no matter what. Even like just with, let's say even the authority structure kind of stays in place, but your wife's more masculine and you're more feminine, but you're just not, like, you're going to break the attraction to each other. It's just going to have downstream effects. And I think then that's just going to hurt generation after generation. You have more people growing up in broken homes. You have more of these problems that are just like, it'll take generations to fix.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so many people are growing up without that father. Like, I was just talking to, just came from the gym talking to a girl about some of this stuff. And I kind of brought up to her about the whole father figure like thing in women's dating lives, and just kind of test and see what she thought of that. And she basically is like, that sounds like a great idea if I had like a father or a father figure in my life. And it's like, there's so many people that don't have that. And it like, it's pain. It saddens me. Like, they're set up for failure.
Yeah.
And then we're surprised by the outcomes of it. You know, like, oh, this person that grew up either with a shitty dad or no dad is this way. And you're like shocked. Like, it should be like expected.
Exactly. You should be, well, what do you expect? You're not doing it God's way. So, you know, another question is, what are some things people worship today? What are they seeking out of life? I will say this. Everything has turned into a deity. Your favorite influencer is a deity. Like, people really think like Zerka could do no wrong. I just watched Zerka get his butt beat. All right. You know, like, but his followers made him a deity. People that are like gung-ho about red pill made the praxeology a deity. It's an ideology. They have, the praxeology is not an ideology, but people will make it an ideology. You know, and it's like, oh, I got to do exactly this because Rollo Tomassi said I got to do this. No, he's saying, hey, these things can work.
I think I would also add activism today. Totally that. Like, whatever the Palestine thing in Israel thing is now the new religion. And, you know, besides that, it's climate change. Then it's
social justice warriors.
Yeah,
period,
it's all
right?
the social justice causes. Like, these people don't have any sort of religion, so that's their religion. They feel good about themselves for being part of something activist based, somehow holding a sign that makes no difference. They're making a difference.
And it's really hard for people to distinguish the difference. Like, Rollo's one that said that, you know, it's a praxeology, it's not an ideology. I'm not a cult leader, I'm not your religious person. You know, like, he has to, I feel bad for the guy because he has to constantly say that to people because people make him that in their eyes.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like
what people want. It's naturally how they flow. Like, he could start a cult. Just how
Yeah.
easy people would just like that's how people work. It's crazy.
Well, it's because you got to look about it. People they want a king, not a god.
Yeah.
Like the
That's a good way
Israelites,
to put it. That's a great
the,
way to put it.
the Israelites wanted a king instead of a god. Hey, we need a king. Can we have Saul as a king? God's like, fine. You want a king instead of a god? There you go.
They
Now
also
you got
want
those.
somebody they want somebody in authority to bless what they're already gonna do anyway.
Yeah, they want somebody it kind of falls into where the Absaloms, right? People want an Absalom. They want somebody to advocate for them,
Yeah.
and they want to get behind that person that's advocating for them. And it's like God's advocating for you. What's the problem getting behind him? And the reason is because God's requirements are so hard to uphold. We all fall short from them.
Thank you, Jesus. We don't have to earn our way to heaven.
Yes. So let's get into chapter 6. Toxic masculine. No, I'm kidding. You guys thought toxic sexuality. The summary says this: modern psychologists speak in terms of toxic masculinity, but the Bible describes sins that reveal toxic sexuality. When masculinity is oriented towards serving God, it is very good. When masculinity follows Cain instead of Abel, it becomes toxic. The errors of toxic masculinity are obvious. True femininity is also very good. But evangelicals forbid you to talk about toxic femininity. Loud and modest women, as the proverb described them, have led many soft men astray, even men as wise as Solomon. This is because, like Cain, they worship themselves instead of pursuing God's dominion. The highlights are: you might think you're too smart for that to work on you. Don't be so sure. It has worked on millions of smart men so far. Are you wiser than Solomon? Just because you know how to avoid the harlots and hussies doesn't mean you know how to avoid Satan's daughters. The obvious traps are not just there to trap the simple. What makes a good code? Did I already read this?
You read that highlights on the last chapter.
Oh, my bad. I read the wrong highlights.
We're good on this one now. No.
Okay. So let's get into toxic sexuality. What'd you think?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of kind of background he sets. I didn't really like highlight anything there, but it's just like good as far as he goes through the Cain and Abel story, and how that correlates, and then he goes into Babel and how that later becomes Babylon, and then he kind of goes into, you read the book chapter, you're always thinking like sexuality and the physical sense, but he's talking about this masculinity and femininity, and he said, "This is why the red pill is what it is." He goes, talking about toxic femininity is verboten in evangelicalism. This is why so many men are unprepared for toxic femininity, and why it has become such a potent accelerant of chaos in the modern day. And I like that. I think that's huge as far as the church, and because it's not talked about, so many men, I was included in this years ago, like completely clueless about what to look for, in toxic femininity. Especially, you can read Proverbs and get an idea of some of the signs, but there's some depth to it.
Yeah, I like how he says toxic sexuality exists in both sexes, right? So men could be toxic, women could be toxic, right? It takes the form of spiritual subversion of God's design. So just as there's really toxic masculinity, wicked patriarchy, there's also toxic femininity. The creation mandate was for both sexes, thus as to be subservient by men in the fall. So to be subservient by women. In both cases, subversion is along sexual lines. There are sins common to men and sins common to women. Talking about toxic femininity is verboten in evangelicalism. This is why so many men, as you just mentioned, so many men are unprepared. And it's funny because we don't talk about that. Anytime we talk about sexual sins in the church, it is always in the masculine nature. So we're always we prepare our girls to understand what toxic, masculinity is, but we do not prepare our boys what toxic femininity is at all, whatsoever. I like how he says Satan is too pleased to use the power of the female sexuality to magnify the disorder he can cause in the world. But this too is nothing new. Apostates through marriage was the catalyst for the flood. So I mean, this is nothing new. Everything's it's the same. Who just switched sides?
Somebody commented our names are wrong underneath us.
Oh,
thanks, Mr. Lord Venom.
Thank you, Lord Venom. Oh, your book came in. That's great. I'm glad you got your book. You could join the conversation. It's funny because we, as he mentions in Proverbs, we see 1/3 of the book of Proverbs is dedicated to men to stay away from bad women. But we rarely hear that ever be preached.
Yeah. Or just the nature of like he says here, Satan has had great success in undercutting the church's teaching on sexuality precisely because he has used subtle and covert forms of sexual immorality to compromise her for generations. A central pillar of this strategy is feminine immorality in the form of immodesty. Here's what we mean. Harlotry in the church is rampant today. Yoga pants, short skirts, dates, dukes, low-cut tops, caked-on makeup, and the like are obvious and egregious, can't say that word, forms of immodesty that go unmentioned and unchallenged in churches across the Western world. And that's, it's subtle and covert, like he said. And what it does, it really exploits men in the end because it exploits our nature. So letting it go unchecked, then in the end, exploits men nature, turning us more toxic.
Yeah. Hey, Lord Venom, I'm on page 77. And shout out to Bill Clinton, Touch Me. Great example of androgyny is tradcons or even churchgoers calling their spouse partner. Facts. I wish I had a Don DeMarco for that one.
Partner. Got your business partner.
I like this part right here. He says Satan is eager to harness, pacify, and destroy God's sons by using his own daughters as bait. Just as he used Eve against Adam, he continues to use toxic femininity as a key pillar in his strategy for inverting the creation order.
Well, just look at what men have done over history. Like, men will start wars over a woman. Like, God has designed us to have this drive for women that can be absolutely exploited with toxic femininity.
Yep. I like how he lists the kind of women whom Satan deployed in the masses to reduce their society to ashes and heat. Like he explains it, right? The subtle forms of immodesty that served as a sharp edge of the wedge. Immodesty characterized through dress, but through words and deeds. It's like She is loud and stubborn. Her feet abide not in her house. Proverbs 7:11. Is there real toxic masculinity and toxic, or is it just toxic people? Good
I think
question.
there's a difference. I think it's toxic people in the end, but I think how it manifests on the masculine versus the feminine is significantly different. So it's worth splitting it, to talk about the different ways.
I would say it's like toxic masculinity in my sense is an effeminate man.
Yeah. Who is it? I think Amy actually said like she views basically simp behavior as toxic masculinity.
Yeah, it is. And also I would say evil patriarchy is toxic. Right? I would say, Glenn, you got to join the Discord to help me keep this doomer named Mike in check. I need to join the Discord.
You need to download that. I don't think you even know what it is.
I don't even know how to. I don't even know how to Discord, bro. I'm not cool. But it's like, a woman. I like this part. He says a woman is not necessarily, or this woman is not necessarily one who speaks too much volume. This is only the most crude kind of loudness. The fundamental problem is loud heart. The Hebrew word refers to the boisterous and tumultuous turbulence and commotion. It is meant to bring to mind a roaring wind like a storm. Therein we find a good metaphor for her, like a storm. She is an unruly energy. She yields only to her own passions. She is immodest because she has no sense of the imperishable qualities of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is precious in the sight of God. Due to the fall, men are prone to passivity, yet are supposed to actively take the lead. Women, by contrast, are cursed to want to play the man, but are supposed to be quiet and deferent. Consider the pattern laid out by Paul. And I think it's interesting because I think I said this to you before. I think we have switched roles here. I see more men submitting and respecting their wives and wives loving their husbands. And that right there would be toxic.
It kind of depends how you view it, though, because I kind of agree with John's view on like Paul is stating there where they each struggle in that. Like women don't struggle loving their husband; they struggle with the respect part.
Yeah,
and naturally have respect in hierarchy. Like we're naturally we work based off respect, so respect isn't really a problem. It's the love part.
Mm-hmm.
So I
think you're right. I think Paul was literally talking to the part that
we're lacking each gender.
Each gender would be lacking in this area, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
it's not like men you don't have to respect your wife. Like, yeah, you do. Like I don't.
You have to respect your wife, but again, you are the head of the household. So just because she doesn't like something, but you feel that it's best for the family, you're not going to just cave into her all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You could take what she says into consideration, try to put in, like amendments in there that could kind of bridge the gap. Like if you guys are moving across state, all right, honey, I know your family's here and you don't want to leave your family. How about we put funds aside to where you can visit your family, twice a year? That's like an amendment. You're still getting what you want. You're still moving across state, but you're also appeasing her by trying to facilitate her having access to her family as often as you guys could afford, right? So there's ways to do it. So that's being respectful to your wife, right? Yeah. I think we because of androgyny, we don't understand what that means.
And I think there's just like when the red pill kind of gets us right when men are kind of in that scarcity mindset. They're not their own mental point of origin. They they're just viewing things through that blue pill lens. A lot of times they don't want it. They sit in that passive role because they don't want to like cause conflict or upset, the situation. It's like their passivity breeds the problem because they're not willing to have a spine. They're not willing to put their foot down because they're in this like, oh, she might leave me, or some sort of nonsense. I don't want to deal with conflict. I'm so conflict averse. I won't even, stand up to my own wife that I live with.
Yep.
So I think, a lot of these situations are just.
Well, because here's the thing, though. They're also they're told that they have to appease their wives.
Yeah. Well,
you're not loving your wife.
Get out of that.
You're not loving your wife if you don't do what she says and do it the way she wants. You're not being a good servant leader if you don't do it that way. And it's just like, it doesn't make sense. I like how he brings up 1 Timothy 2, 9 through 15 on page 80. You want to read that?
As far the modesty conversation?
Yeah.
Likewise, I want women to adorn themselves with proper clothing, modestly and discreetly, not with braided hair and gold or pearls or costly garments, but rather by the means of good works, as is proper for women making a claim to godliness. A woman must quietly receive instruction with entire submissiveness. But I do not allow a woman to teach or exercise authority over a man, but to remain quiet. For it was Adam who was first created, and then Eve. And it was not Adam who was deceived, but the woman, being deceived, fell into transgression. But women will be preserved through the bearing of children if they continue in faith and love and sanctity with self-restraint.
And I love how he says like that next portion, right? He's like, evangelicals tend to give all the attention to the explicitly offense part of this passage, the ones that requires the most apology to feminists. They fail to notice the broader implicate patterns established throughout, which is more offensive to the modern sensibility, that women in the church are not to draw attention to themselves in any way. They are not to seek to stand over others, whether through their clothing or their speech or their will. Rather, they're supposed to remain meek, modest, quiet, self-retained, sustained, entirely submissive. This is a very opposite of the modern concern about how to ensure that women are heard and have a voice in church.
Yeah, good luck.
It cracks me up that like this passage is not being enforced in the church. It's actually the exact opposite of that. I've seen girls walk in church in the most skimpiest clothes. I'm like, damn, is it club night at the church?
Fortunately, I haven't seen that a lot.
Yeah, you're lucky.
There's like a.
I guess maybe it's like in Vegas.
Yeah, because I've kind of heard the opposite. Like some church cultures, like the women don't even try.
Yeah.
And like I see, like the one I remember seeing a reel of it, and the woman on stage was like wearing like baggy, look like man jeans with like a flannel. Just she looked like a dude. And so yeah, this is a flip side. Some Christian women like think even trying to be beautiful is like immodest. And yeah.
I like this part in page 81. And Lord Venom, we'll get to your question here in a minute. Said the loud woman despises the estate for which God made her. In the hierarchy of creation, she does not know her place. Her loudness and stubbornness lead her away from her household. Her feet do not remain at home. Proverbs 7:11. Though she has a husband, she's supposed to be submitted to his mission. She refuses. It is in his home she should be caught up in the work of building, yet she is off doing her own thing. She will not be chained down to the home of one man. Matthew Henry puts it well. By her place, not her own house, she hates confinement, and employment of that. Her feet abide not where or not there any longer than needs must. She is all for getting abroad, changing place and company. She's without in the country under pretense of taking the air. Now she's in the streets of the city under the pretense of seeing how the market goes. She is here and there and everywhere but where she should be. She lies in wait at every corner to pick up such as she can and make a prey of. Virtue is the penance of to those who are at home. It is a prison. Thought that was
well, that's the message today given to those stay-at-home moms. Like, you're in a prison, basically.
Yep.
Like, they shame them, and somehow, working 50 hours a week for some boss that could care less about you is better.
What do you think about Sheryl Sandberg? I love this part.
Yeah,
too.
Her book, the fact that she even wrote that in a book is just wild.
Let's get to Lord Venom's question, then we'll hit up the Sheryl Sandberg quote. Lord Venom said, so question. Since God is all-knowing, does that mean he knew this would happen and this was all part of his plan? God is all-knowing, yes. Did he know this would happen? Yes. Did he prepare for us for this to happen? Yeah, his Bible instructs us exactly what to expect from both men and women.
This is one of those debated things too, with like Calvinism versus Molinism, and is everything out? Like, does he literally plan everything? How much free will do we have? Blah blah blah. So it's a debated topic amongst Christians. It's kind of at the nerd level of things. I think I like William Lane Craig's view on it. He has kind of he describes God having kind of like middle knowledge, basically knowing the result of any of our choices at a time. So he could, in a sense, he knows exactly how it's going to play out, based on how we will make choices, but he's not directing our choices or
God's not
we
like
have free will.
God's not like, oh, Glenn's going to sin today. I'm going to have Glenn do this sin. Like, he's not doing that, but he's like, I know Glenn's going to fall short in these areas. And if he comes across these things, unless he reads my word and he takes my wisdom that I give him, he's going to fall short. Just like he knows Lord Venom is going to fall short if Lord Venom does this. So, but he gives us this beautiful thing called a Bible that gives us instructions. It's like a how to live a better life. And it teaches us what to avoid and what not to avoid, right? So, but
there's probably a paradox in it all too. Like,
yeah,
is it even possible to create a world in that the creation you create that has free will, for that creation to freely choose to love you and want relationship with you, that there wouldn't be these type of results? I think it just might not. And because I always thought, I was thinking about evil the other day. I was like, I think evil's necessary for people to choose God.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Like if we never had a contrast to see dark, if we never had that dark and light contrast, we'd just probably float around through life completely not caring about God or a relationship with God, because there's no contrast to it.
Yeah.
So, it's a paradox, fun to think about, but no, we can't give you a firm answer.
So Sheryl Sandberg, the CEO of Facebook, is a great example of a loud woman. And the feminist ideals. In her book, Lean In, she writes this. When looking for a life partner, pause. You notice she didn't say husband. She said partner.
Yeah.
So I think she's gay. When looking for a life partner, my advice to women is to date all of them. the bad boys, the cool boys, the commitment phobic boys, the scary boys. But don't marry any of them. Don't marry them. The thing that makes a bad boy sexy does not make them a good husband. When it comes time to settle down, find someone who wants an equal partner. Someone who thinks women should be smart, opinionated, ambitious. Someone who values fairness and accepts, or even better, wants to do his share in the home. These men exist. Trust me. Over time, nothing is sexier. So what?
I guarantee she's not aroused by that man.
No. What makes a good husband, according to Sandberg? It is a man who does not get in the way of his wife's ambitions. This is why the commanding alpha male of her youth won't do. They'll buck against her demands and manipulations. Sandberg is like all loud women. Eventually settle down for compliment beta who knows who really wears the pants. This is what makes loud women such bad news. They invert the biblical pattern of the household. Manhood is ultimately about a man building God's house by building his own. This is a spiritual worship. This work can't be completed alone. It requires a woman. Hence, God brought Eve to Adam as a helper to this service. He is the head. She is the body. He is the leader. She is the follower. I like how he paints that because it completely contrasts what Sheryl Sandberg is, the advice that she's giving to.
Well, from a secular standpoint, her advice probably makes tons of sense.
Maybe. Well, then it's like almost safe to say then from a secular standpoint, Myron's advice makes total sense.
It does make sense if you're not doing it God's way. Like,
true.
You know, and I think, you know, a lot of these women, I thought Ryan Stone had a good tweet we were talking about on Discord. Like, he kind of was poking shade at, I think, JP's daughter, you know, living the white picket fence life. Like, a lot of these women are kind of getting to have it all. And, you know, the red pill guys are sitting waiting for him to crash and burn, hopefully.
Yeah.
But they are. Sheryl Sandberg, she probably dated, had fun with all the bad boys in her 20s, got the giant career. I don't know if she's married now, probably found some dutiful beta guy to settle down with and have kids with.
Let's find out. Let's see. I got to Google this. Is Sheryl Sandberg.
Even her about, it says her partner, Tom Bernthal, is her partner, I guess.
Now, she's had multiple spouses. Let's get that straight. So it hasn't worked out for her.
The one died. What in the world?
Yeah. Brian Kraft from 1993 to 94. And then, Dave Goldberg from 2004 to 2015.
He died. So that one lasted longer than I expected.
So technically,
she's kind of living. I mean, that's what's funny. She's kind of having it all.
But technically, she's single.
Well, since she's got some new guy, Tom.
She has a partner. She's seeing somebody, right? Just for the past year so far, to 2023 or 2022 on. So they're not even married. They're dating.
As in February 3rd, 2020, she announced her engagement to that guy.
But they're not married.
They got married in August 2022.
Okay, so they are married. But if her method was correct, then don't you think she would have picked that guy the first time?
No, because she got to have fun first.
No, but she had fun with 3 different husbands.
Well, yeah, but the point, I think the point remains, is her her advice for the secular girls. Some of them it probably works out for her.
But like the marriage aspect didn't work out for her. is what I'm getting at.
Well, on the first one, it looks like it lasted a year, but the next one, it was looking like it was going fine until he probably died.
Well, if the second one didn't die, I thought the first one died.
Says the first one was like a year, and then the second one was like 10 years, and then he died.
Oh. Okay.
11 years.
I don't think 10 years is like a good. Could they still be together? Who knows? That's the only thing, right?
Well, the point is the guy is getting the bad end of the stick on that. It's like like she had her fun, and now she picked you to be the beta provider guy that is going to, clean the house for this type A masculine woman, and she kind of gets to have it all.
I like how he says this at the end of 83. He goes, this work can't complete it alone and requires a woman. Hence, God brought Eve to Adam as a helper. He is the head, she is the body. He is the leader, she is a follower. He is commissioned, she is in submission. He is the glory of God, she is the glory of man. A loud woman, however, will not submit herself to such a situation. It grates against her. She will not stand for masculine rulership. She is not content with her place in God's hierarchy. She hates the masculine strength that would keep her there. This is the feminine version of Cain's self-worship that we see in Genesis 4. The loud woman will not center her life on God's glory. It must be her or nothing.
Yep.
So let's get into the questions for that chapter. I think that chapter, like, honestly, in my opinion, it really like helps men to differentiate what kind of woman is worthy of his attention.
Mm-hmm.
I think he contrasts, Sheryl Sandberg from biblical, women behavior. This is what God says a woman's supposed to be doing. This is what she's saying supposed to be doing. And you can see, like, the Sheryl Sandberg doesn't sound attractive. The Sheryl Sandberg woman does not sound attractive at all. And I think when guys read that, they could see, like, oh, this woman, this way that she behaves sounds very attractive. This way that this woman behaves, that sounds unattractive.
I'm sure someone like her, the marriage is probably a business relationship, barely even a thing.
Yeah.
Those types of marriages, I bet they're open too.
Yeah.
It's like Bill Clinton and Hillary. Like, that's not a marriage.
So Lord Venom said, so he knew Eve would eat the apple, then knew everything would plan out through the different stages of time. So, like, this world is a story God created. So he knew how and when the world ends. I mean, well, he's the Alpha and Omega. He's the beginning and the end. He's the first and the last.
Yeah, that's why prophecy's there. He knows the future.
Yep. Your question was, why is the church not preaching the truth? Well, because the church is not for the truth. The modern day evangelical church is not for the truth today.
I also think it's a flaw of humans. Like, the church has been a mess since the beginning. Look at, if you just read the Bible, look at the letters Paul had to write right out the gate. He's having to bring all this stuff up. And then you read in Revelation.
Look at how the disciples were, like, arguing in Acts, right? There was a lot of things that they didn't agree upon.
Mm-hmm.
So there has been constant disagreement over God's word. And the reason, let's just be honest, the reason why the church is not teaching this is the church is effeminate. And
there's also, like, incentive structures at play in our current society. Number one, the church needs a bunch of money. If you say stuff that's going to make a bunch of your people leave that are giving you money, like, you're going to be incentivized to not do that. You
Yeah,
and
you're like,
scale that over generations.
Yep.
So, I don't think we shouldn't be surprised by it. Like
We
it should be.
We shouldn't be surprised, but at the same time, we should be surprised. And the reason why I say that is because if we walk by faith, not by works, right? If God calls us to step out in faith with Him, like He did with Peter in the water, ye have little faith. Why did Peter drown? Because he had little faith. And if these churches were preaching the truth, they wouldn't care whether or not the truth offended anybody in their congregation, because God wants the truth to be free. God wants the truth to be preached. God didn't give us a spirit of fear, but power, love, and sound mind. So why are we afraid? If God has his hand over things, then God would provide. Is that not true? So if these pastors are operating out of fear, then they're not operating out of the power God that has given them. They have given power over to the enemy to dictate, to determine what they're going to preach about. Bingo. The church is effeminate, love money, so don't make the woman mad, equals effeminacy.
I think I forgot the train of thought where I was going with that. I think in the long term, though, like we have to realize we're dealing with humans running churches, and that's one reason I really have issues with the Orthodox and Catholic churches and how much they view the church infallible.
Yeah,
and that blows my mind because we have humans running the show. Right out the gate, the church is failing. In Revelations, the church is failing. Like, we are human, and we are going to fail. And we're also going to read, like, a lot of churches might think they're preaching truth. It's because you can take the word of God and manipulate it to the bias you have, just like you can with data. So you can preach you can pull verses and do what you want with it, and cherry pick stuff and think you got the truth. You see that with the gay pastors now.
Well, I think you have to do a whole lot of theological gymnastics that doesn't add up when you really break it down. You know, and I'll use this as an example. Like I said, I think I told you earlier, I'm in this like debate about servant leadership and then mutual submission, and they keep on going to Ephesians 5:21 to say that right there, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. That means mutual submission. Husbands submit to their wives. The argument is completely crap. The reason is because are they saying, and this is what I oppose, this is what I present. Are they saying Ephesians 5:21 trumps 5:22? Does Ephesians 5:21 also trump Genesis 3:16? Does Ephesians 5:21 trump Titus 3 or 2:1 through 5?
Yeah, you use scripture to interpret scripture.
Huh?
You use scripture to interpret scripture.
Exactly. And I'm like, what about 1 Peter 3:1? All these talk about male headship and women's submission. Your desire to rule your husband, but he will rule over you. That shows you your desire to control your husband, but your husband will still have the authority over you. That's male headship, women's submission.
Hey, speaking of random thought, has anyone found yet where Zerker keeps saying that the son, when he turns 18, has authority over the mother?
There is none.
Yeah, I saw him in another clip saying that again.
Hold on.
He says it with such confidence, and I'm like, I still haven't found that.
Let's pull that up. What is it again?
He basically says like the son has authority over his mother when he turns 18. And I'm like, I tried Googling it once, got nowhere. And I'm like, they don't talk about age 18, that's for sure in the Bible. It would be adulthood with, I don't know. But what are the let's get into the questions on this one. I gotta take off here shortly.
There absolutely is none. There is none. Now, okay. I will give them this though. Let's say you are taking care of your mother, and your mother is living with you, and you are the patriarch of your household, and she lives in that household. Yes, you have the responsibility and the authority over your household and all those that are in your household. Absolutely. But if your mom's living alone, you can't be like, hey, mom, I want you home by 7:00. All right. I'm going to check. You're like, like that doesn't work, dude. That doesn't
Mom,
work.
come make me dinner.
Yeah.
I have
Mom, come
authority
do
over
my
you.
laundry. Like that doesn't work. Yeah. Berserker has done way too much cocaine. We'll read these questions and then we could get into some of the chat real quick before we wrap up. Question 1: Can men ever stop trying to take dominion?
No,
No. It's wired in us.
it's built into the foundation.
How are Cain's cities and the Tower of Babel counterfeit dominions? What drives these cities? Well, the Tower of Babel wanted to build the tower all the way up to the heavens, right?
Yep.
So they were basically trying to create something like,
They're basically self-worship.
yeah,
Say like Cain named a city like
after his son, right?
Yeah. So they're basically building something on earth to self-worship.
Yeah, it's almost like saying like you're happy that you have a street named after you. Like I'm calling this road Glen Lawrence Drive. That's right. You're driving on Glen Lawrence Drive. That's the self-worship, right?
By the way, the Cain and Abel story is one of my reasons why I struggle with the young earth view. And I don't think Adam and Eve were the only humans walking around then, because Cain, he kills Abel and then he gets like expelled from his family. And then God's like, if anyone kills Cain, like he has some mark on his head or something, like I will return way worse to them. And I'm like, who is the other people to kill Cain?
Maybe he was talking about his brother Stephen.
He acted like he was gonna have to go wander the wilderness, and he's like, if anyone kills Cain, they're in big trouble. Like he's gonna go find other tribes of people. And I was like, who is this other person?
Well, I mean, there was the Nephilims.
Well, I think there's a lot probably more going on than we realize. Like, and then we never hear about daughters from Adam and Eve, do we?
No, but we also don't hear about like a whole lot of like female succession, right? Unless it's important in the Bible. Because you got to remember, the first century Jew wouldn't acknowledge women. So
anyway, that was a tangent. But
how has sexuality corrupted the fallen world? How is violence misdirected?
Well, sexuality is, I think that's evident. It's promiscuity, the androgyny thing.
Yep.
Just immodesty leading, like both the female's desire for attention is exploited, as well as the male desire for variety and physicality is exploited.
I would also say that by abandoning our roles that God has given us, men being more effeminate, that is how sexuality is being corrupted. Women being more masculine is a way that sexuality is being corrupted. Literally taking on the opposite gender role is a way that the devil has corrupted sexuality. And how is violence misdirected? Violence is a good thing, You work.
Violence is a good thing.
Violence is a good thing. It's entertaining. You go watch two people box it out. Watch Zerka get knocked out. That's some good violence right there. But
well, I think he's referring with this question to the Cain and Abel story, right?
Yeah.
I'm just looking for his kind of exact. The older brother represents the evil, rebellious, and self-satisfying ways of the serpent, those who corrupt God's way to magnify their own names and respond in outrage when God is unimpressed.
Yeah, it's like, look, God, look what I did. And God's like, bro, I created a universe. That's how I look at it. It's like, bro, I created an entire universe. You did something cute. That's cute. I think that God looks like all the works that we do. It's like, kids finger painting. Like, look at that. Look at the picture I did. It's like, yeah, that's cute. Let's put it on the fridge.
Good try.
Let's get into these chats real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. Lauren Vedum said, yeah, I will. Sunday, we're going to do Proverbs 7. All right. I've already committed to that. It's funny. I just ordered my new Bible. My new Bible just got here today. I'm going to use like the ESV study Bible this time. This go around. I have multiple study Bibles, but I don't have an ESV study Bible. So I got myself an ESV study Bible. So we'll be doing that. I guess children shouldn't submit to parents. Apparently not, according to Zerka. CHD, hope you have a good day at work, bro.
So the planet he's on, where's he at? Australia?
I believe he's in the Philippines or something like that. I believe he's in the Philippines, right? No,
Yeah.
or are you in Los Angeles? Do you work Graves? CHD, are you in the Philippines or are you in Los Angeles working Graves? I can't remember.
Working Graves. I like that.
Lord Venom, isn't there a story that Eve had a no?
That's Jewish mythology right there.
Oh, he's in Florida. That's right. My bad. You're in Florida with. Well, you need.
I'm in Florida.
I was gonna say you need to link up with Mike.
Yeah, where you at?
I think he's. I don't know. I'm already wrong. I'm not gonna say Tampa because that could be completely wrong. But I think either him or Smoking Patriots in Tampa.
No, he's over on the other side. We talked about that.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, he's like 4 hours away.
Where is he?
He's in Orlando.
Oh, you're in Orlando too? Oh, dang.
I'm in Sarasota.
Well, you guys need to do a meetup.
Yeah. That's much closer than Smoking Patriot.
Orlando?
Yeah. It's like half the distance.
So if I'm like looking at, is it on the inside, like the Gulf, or is it on the other side?
Orlando's kind of in the middle, closer to the east side though.
Orlando's in the middle of the state?
I wouldn't necessarily say in the middle, but it's probably like an hour from the East Coast, if I remember right.
So, but is it more on the East Coast than the Gulf?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering.
He'd know more. I avoid that part of the state.
Didn't you have like a really bad date there one time?
No.
No.
That road is like the worst nightmare ever. Going to Orlando, it's like somehow people don't know how to drive straight on an interstate and traffic will be like stopped because of an accident almost every time you drive it.
I'm so excited for the Sherman Sundays. Will Mike be joining at some point in the future?
I'm sure I will.
Mike is more than welcome to join the Bible. I'm basically calling it a Bible study a Sunday. We're just going to read through a Proverbs and just kind of break it down. But Mike is more than well.
You should invite on that time is maybe George.
Bruno?
Yeah, because he's been doing the Proverbs study, I think.
Oh
somewhere.
yeah. I'll definitely reach out to him. I got his email. I'll hit up George. But yeah, Mike and the Iron Disciples are always welcome to join me when I'm doing something, you know. So that's for sure. So if Mike wants to join, he could come on Sunday. Went through all that. Yep, traffic's crazy. All right, guys. Well, that about do it.
Get the books, gents, and join us next time in the conversation.
Yeah, Lord Venom, you got the book, right? I believe you said you got the book. So I expect you, Lord Venom, to catch up because next week we are doing chapters 7 and 8. Chapter 7 is the church effeminate. So, and if you want to come on and like talk about it, you don't have to show your face. You know, you're more than welcome. Just pop up with an icon, and we could have a discussion. You can be part of the discussion if you like. If that's something you want to do, let me know. Let Mike know, and we'll get that set up for you. But until next time, you guys, read the book, pray, do your studies, and love, peace, and chicken grease. We're out.
See you later.